This is Dennis McMahon, and welcome to Positively Vermont. My guest today is Katie Wood Kirchhoff, one of the curators of a very interesting exhibit that's going to be happening at the Shelburne Museum, or actually is in progress at the Shelburne Museum, and that is the America 250 exhibit. First of all,
Yes,
welcome. Tell us a little bit
thank
about
you.
yourself and what you do at the Shelburne Museum.
Oh, sure. I am the Alice Cooney Freilingheisen Curator of American Decorative Arts. So I work with all of our collections of sort of traditional American decorative arts, like furniture and textiles and those kinds of things. I also work on our sort of folk art and fine art collections that are pre-1945. So a lot of what is contained within this America 250 showcase that we've got for the 2026 season falls under my umbrella.
And tell us a little bit about the Shelburne Museum itself, its history, its location, and the scope of it right now.
Yeah, so for folks who haven't been to Shelburne Museum before, we are a large institution. We're actually the largest museum in the state of Vermont. We are located on 45 acres in Shelburne, Vermont, just off of Route 7. And we have currently 39 buildings and structures. So it's a large campus that you can kind of wander. It was incorporated in 1947 by our museum founder, Electra Havemeyer Webb, who had moved up here because she married into the Webb family, and she, I think, became really interested in this landscape in this place. She began collecting folk art when she was in her 20s, and that sort of passion grew and grew and grew. And so over the course of several decades, she amassed a collection that we now call our collection of collections. It encompasses all kinds of objects, everything from fine and folk art to furniture and textiles and buildings and carriages and those kinds of things. So we're really broad. We have a little bit of something for everyone. One of my favorite things about our institution is that no matter what you're interested in, there's sort of a place for you. You can open a door and find something interesting. And so we've sort of tried to do that with this America 250 showcase to get people into a variety of different buildings, thinking about different materials, and going from there.
That's great. And you're one of the curators. There's several curators involved in this exhibit, though, right?
Yes. So we have a tight curatorial department here, and we all have different specialties, but often they overlap. And so yeah, when we thought about what we might want to include for this tour and for this sort of unit at the museum, we put our heads together and came up with what I think is a pretty nice representation of our collection. Interestingly, we didn't need to bring special items out to be on view this year. We have them on view all the time because our collection is one that really, um, we are so grounded in sort of the colonial and 19th century periods that like we have lots of good things to think about, revolutionary ideals and politics and those kinds of themes.
Well, I see it started May 9th and is gonna run through October 25th. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's our 2026 season.
Excellent. Now tell us what you have. I see that there's painting, folk art, all kinds of things. Tell us exactly what the exhibit is. I understand it has a theme, and give us the theme of that. Particularly, it's the 250 aspect of it, America 250.
Yeah. So, clearly this year at the sesquicentennial, we are marking the anniversary of the 250th, uh, 250 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so we tried to find objects that both spoke to the period when all of that was happening in the late 18th century and some of the, I guess you could say, the sort of big ideas that came from that. So over 3 buildings, we have 3 themes that all sort of feed into that. So in our web gallery of American painting, we have a series of portraits, landscapes, genre pictures, and pieces of furniture that relate to colonial North America and these sort of themes related to the formation of the country. So we call that America the Beautiful because these are, fine art representations and some cabinetry that sort of allows us to think about big themes in the country. We have 2 other buildings that are included on this tour. One of them is Stagecoach Inn, which is our building that houses our folk art collections. So in Stagecoach Inn, we have For the People, by the People. And that features 18 patriotic folk sculptures ranging from George Washington on horseback to ships' figureheads, eagles, and more. So those are sort of more traditional items, American sort of utilitarian sculpture, if you will. And then in our Hat and Fragrance textile galleries, we have a selection of quilts up this year that sort of highlight our patchwork nation. And these quilts all feature sort of patriotic or commemorative iconography, like eagles, wreaths, or textiles related to the 1876 centennial, which of course was the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So yeah, between those 3 buildings, we have a variety of items on view. We also have attendant programming, and so there have been and will be more lectures and those kinds of events here at the museum that we are archiving on our website. So if you're curious to learn more, you can navigate to the Shelburne Museum website. You can go to our learning tab, navigate down to webinars, and see all kinds of content surrounding where we're at now at 250 years in 2026.
That's great. What I'm curious about it is the items themselves. I know that there's a theme, but are there any items that date back to early American days?
That is a good question. So we do have some items that date back to the late 18th century or the mid 18th century. One in particular is this really incredible japanned high chest that was made in Boston, we think probably between the 1740s and the 1760s. So that predates the Revolution. That is an item that was created during the colonial period, and it was meant to imitate Chinese lacquerware that had been imported by the British. So it was very fashionable in Britain. And folks who moved to North America, if they wanted a little taste of home and wanted to show that they'd really made it, they might have wanted an object like that. But what's interesting about that is that it's sort of this game of historical telephone, right? It's a japanned object. So it references the Far East and trade and sort of the Atlantic world. But it also speaks to what colonists were doing on this side of the pond to fashion themselves as if they had arrived. So we have items like that. We have most of our items are after the 18th century. So after we had declared independence. And some really great examples of things that are on view in Web Gallery. We have one painting by Edward Hicks that is called William Penn's Treaty with the Indians. And that is a really interesting picture. So it was painted in the 1840s. And it depicts William Penn in this sort of fictitious setting near the Treaty Oak, where he is working with the Lenni Lenape Indians who were there and supposedly signing a treaty. Now, interestingly, that was the Treaty of Shackamaxon, and we don't know that was ever actually a thing that happened. But this kind of imagery has been used so often, whether it's in our history books that we learn, as students, or later, that it has become this sort of mythological object in and of itself that talks about, manifest destiny and these ideas of settlement here in North America. So some really interesting objects like that.
Well, kind of like the paintings that show everybody kind of lined up and standing around a table. I guess it didn't happen that way, but
Right. Right. Yeah, that's exactly sort of what we're trying to get at. And one of the interesting things about the collection of items that we've highlighted is that many of them, they either sort of espouse these big revolutionary ideas or themes that would become central to American identity. Some of them, though, also sort of push back a little bit and remind us that history is not a clean through line for anyone. One of my favorite items that we've highlighted is a painting by an unidentified maker. It is called Suffragettes on a Sleigh Ride.
mhm.
And we think that it was painted to commemorate many of the suffragists who were out campaigning for the right to vote in the early 19th century. And this is a theme that's really important, right? Suffrage is critical for everyone to participate in. And in fact, Electra Havemeyer Webb's mother, Louisine Havemeyer, was an active suffragist. She was out there sort of campaigning and lobbying for the right to vote. So
Mhm.
I think many of the works on view, they really help us to suss out some of these themes, but they complicate those narratives too.
That's great. I wonder if you could give us a little tour of what people can expect or where they should go once they go into the entrance and follow
Yeah.
us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So were it me, I would visit the museum. I'd have a big breakfast, and then I'd come down and I would start in the web gallery. So with our paintings and our furniture, we've talked about some of the paintings that are in there right now, and after that, I think I would waltz down the hill to Stagecoach Inn, which is where we have our collection of American folk sculpture. And those items are really interesting too. We have a lot of eagles. We have carved and painted objects that would have gone on ships, or maybe, on the pediments of buildings. And those too, they're related to sort of maritime commerce, but that was such a huge economic engine early in our country for the development of the Eastern Seaboard. I think that's important to note. Um, so yeah, it really I think I would see paintings and furniture, and then I would head down the hill to Stagecoach Inn. We have two floors there, and there are all kinds of items, whether they are carved figures of Liberty and George Washington that came to the museum through legendary dealer Edith Halpert. Or we have one really great object that is this sort of eagle that is standing on Uncle Sam's hat. It was a sign that was put outside a veterans home, we think in Massachusetts. And so that, is another really sort of positive, iconic view of how uh, like visual codes were being used to concretize your service, to thank service members, and to create a space for these folks in the world. And then from there, I would head down to the Hat and Fragrance Textile Galleries, where we have one big room that is full of quilts from our permanent collection. We have 637 quilts in our permanent collection right now. That number does change over time, but we have selected 7 quilts that specifically speak to themes of the Revolution or the Centennial. And then in a secondary gallery in the Hat and Fragrance Textile Building, we have a whole gallery full of so-called log cabin quilts. It was a specific block pattern that could be manipulated in terms of color and intensity, but it sort of relates back to a number of presidential campaigns, and this idea of the home and the hearth as the kind of foundation for American life. And so taken together, the items in Web Gallery, the items in Stagecoach Inn, and the items in the Hat and Fragrance Textile Galleries give us a really good overview of different kinds of materials, both fine art and domestic furnishings, that would have embodied these kinds of themes that I think you might argue were really held dear by the folks who wanted to start thinking about the American experiment.
Mhm. Well, are there any? This seems like a vast collection. Where did you get all of these items from?
So most of these items were already on view.
Mhm.
Interestingly, because of the time period that our museum was founded, we were established during what some people call the colonial revival,
Mhm.
which was a time in the middle of the 20th century when there were a number of collectors who were thinking about traditional American objects that were old, but that could be sort of reused in the present day to reinforce the kinds of people we wanted to be. And so what we did when we imagined this sort of showcase is we thought about some of the best items that are always on view and thinking about them through a slightly different lens. So thinking about them and really giving these objects that, otherwise are on display, um, but giving them a real moment to shine within this narrative. An old professor of mine once told me that every object sings many songs. And when you
Mhm.
work as a curator, one of the jobs that you have is to figure out what the strongest song is for the argument that you're trying to make. And so when we went through our collection, we wanted good objects that were visually interesting, that would reward viewers for spending time with them and close looking. But we wanted to also think about how those items were part and parcel to the formation of this museum in the sort of cultural moment when it was created in the late 1940s and early 1950s.
Are there any items that are peculiar to early Vermont American history?
That's a good question. Objects that are peculiar to early Vermont. We do have objects like that in our collection, although they're not necessarily highlighted as part of America 250. And part of the reason for that is that, as you know, Dennis, Vermont doesn't become a state until more than a decade after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so, interestingly, when we think about Vermont material culture and history, we're sort of just a half pace behind where a lot of the other sort of early states and colonies on the Eastern Seaboard were. So there are lots of other items at our museum that are here to explore that sort of further flesh out those themes. I'm trying to think about Vermont specific kinds of things. We targeted items that had national significance
Mhm.
because it's a national conversation that we're having.
That's great. Now, what kind of aids will people who visit this have? Will there be guides or lecturers or people directing them to certain things?
Yes, for sure. So when visitors come to Shelburne Museum, we have a brochure that sort of outlines the America 250 project. It notes the three buildings where objects are on display. And when you go into those buildings, what you'll notice is that we have stickers on the wall that notate the items that are sort of part of the special tour. So you'll see our America 250 stickers. You'll be able to kind of track those items. We do have additional attendant programming. So I gave a lecture last month that is already archived on our website. There will be several more over the course of the season. Um, and so folks can go into the galleries, grab a brochure, go sort of check items off their list. If people would like more information, they can access an America 250 link via Shelburne Museum's website. And embedded in that kind of splash page for the exhibition is a downloadable PDF of all of the items that are on display and linked to our America 250 project. Conveniently, if you go to our website and you download that PDF, you will get the full text of the labels that we have on display. You'll get all of the images, and so you'll be able to kind of have a closer look. So we've tried to be smart about how we're inviting people to access this material so that it's there in a number of different kind of modalities, depending on how you like to intake your information.
That's great. Now, I notice it goes to October. Is there any timeline of events that are going to take place between today and October relative to this exhibit?
So, well, we have passed the 4th of July,
Mhm.
and we actually had a big weekend last weekend with all kinds of tours and things. But over the course of the season, folks can check Shelburne Museum's calendar. And so that is also accessible over the website. But if you go to our events calendar, you can see any number of events that are lined up for the America 250 celebration. So that is a great place to look for sort of up to date, up to the minute scheduling. And then many of those materials will be available as downloadable uh, digital assets after those events. So they do get archived. So if you miss a lecture, it's not the end of the world.
Mhm. I'm always curious about, are there any special publications that people can take away from this? Is there a catalog available?
So no, there's no catalog for this. What I would say is our collections are fairly aligned with these kinds of themes in general. And so in our gift shop, we do have a number of catalogs that sort of speak to different parts of our collection in depth. But we don't have a specific America 250 publication for this, uh, unfortunately.
And what will there be any performance aspect to this at all? Uh,
Wait, I'm sorry, say that again?
will there be any performance aspects to this at all? I know sometimes museums have.
No, we will have sort of lectures and webinars and those kinds of things, but no performances per se.
Okay, that's good. Now, what about outreach? Is the museum available for outreach to schools or civic groups or anything? I don't know what the personnel, but do you have people who would visit schools and civic groups about this?
So we have a group tours program, and the folks who run that down in our visitor services department do a great job of getting the word out about programs and those kinds of things. We are not sort of doing outreach in terms of going into schools right now. But our educators are taking a lot of this information and making it available for teachers who are interested in engaging with it too. Now, of course, we've just gone into summer break. So right now we are hosting camps at the museum. But we expect that in the fall, once the students go back, there will be an increased demand for some of this content, which will be great.
That's great. So we're recording this in July, and this is going to run through October. What are the plans the museum has for beyond that, if any? This might be.
So once our 2026 season wraps, we will close at the end of October. And then we will go right into planning for Winter Lights. So I don't know if you've ever been, Dennis, but Winter Lights usually happens from right around Thanksgiving until the first week in January. And so every year, we've done this since 2021, and every year we add just a little bit. So our senior curator, Corey Rogers, has been in charge of kind of waking it up for this year. And so we will, after we close in October, we'll go hard into preparation for Winter Lights, which we're very excited about. And then we go into installation for our 2027 shows.
Mhm.
So all kinds of changes to our permanent collection. In 2027, we have all kinds of exciting things coming online. The Perry Center for Native American Art, which will be our 40th building on campus, is scheduled to open in 2027. We also are going to have brand new exhibitions at the Pizzagalli Center for Art and Education. We'll have an exhibition about Wolf Kahn, Vermont painter. Our exhibition, Varied and Alive, Treasures from the Collection, is on downstairs. That opened this last spring and will be up for another year through the end of 2027. And yeah, we're really excited about getting people onto campus. You know, it feels like now that it's officially summer, things are in full swing. You know, we've got lots of kids and families here, and it feels really nice to see people enjoying all this hard work that we put in over the winter.
That's great. One of the things we like to do here at Positively Vermont is to afford the guests the opportunity to ask, what do you need from the community? Certainly, there may be donations people can make, or estates like that, or volunteers. How can members of the public, in addition to going to the exhibit, assist in these matters?
Well, I'll tell you, we are so honored to have so many really wonderful volunteers and guides who come and help us, spread these stories to our visitors. Um, I would say the best thing that our neighbors or listeners to this program can do is just come to the museum, come and enjoy the grounds, right? What we try to do here is create a space where anyone can come and feel welcome, where anyone can come and can really sort of consider and think about some of the big questions that guide us in our everyday lives here as Americans. And I think it's important to note, right? History is messy. And so many of the items that we have, I think, do a really good job of offering entry points into some of the challenging parts of our histories here in North America. So I would hope that folks come and bring their families and spend time. I should also note that one of the most magical things about our museum is that it's not just galleries, right? We have gardens all across the campus that are open for you to peruse. If you have little kids in your life who just need to run, but like in a kind of confined space, they can do that here, right? There's a playground at the museum. There are areas where if kids just need a break, they can just take a break. And the same thing for parents, right? We try to keep things reasonably open-ended so that you have time to absorb and appreciate things at your own pace, which is, it's different for everyone. But that's what we're all about. And we're just so grateful that we have such a wonderful support network of neighbors and members and donors. We feel really, really lucky, Dennis.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much. My guest today on Positively Vermont has been Katie Wood Kirchhoff, who was one of the curators of the Celebrate America 250 exhibit at the Shelburne Museum. Thank you very much, Katie, and thanks everyone for watching Positively Vermont.